EU might have clocked out, but it's time for NA the clock in. This is Deadlock Night Shift number 7. ZP here with DDK and Ubershouts rejoin the broadcast. It's been a hot minute, Mitch, but glad to have you back.
Yeah, look, someone in the chat said that needs someone who actually plays the game to cast Night Shift, and so here I am. I've been someone put the bat signal up in the sky, and I've responded. Great to be back here with you guys, though. Seriously, it's been too long.
And Dan, we now get to go into NA, where we got another redemption story coming on in, where Hydra Nation looking to reclaim the throne after getting knocked out by Baroness Hotel, a team full of incredibly mechanically skilled players, but still a pickup team nonetheless, or at least they were last week.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I actually have kind of been AWOL in a sense as well, because I haven't been on an NA part of the broadcast in like 4 weeks, so I get my taste of Americans.
What does that taste mean? Of America?
I don't know what that means. I also didn't know.
What in the world?
I mean, bro married one. You'd think he'd have enough of that by this point, and yet still wants more Americans. All right, bro. I respect it.
NA esports.
On that note,
okay.
This is where we go to the bracket and wonder, okay, what in the world are we going to see? And also get away from our faces here for a moment. Well, we just wrapped up EU, and it was Buff and Joyers reclaiming the throne once more. The EU saga continues. Buff and Joyers now up 4-3 in the lifetime here on Deadlock Night Shift. But we're moving on to the NA Challenger match. It's Hydra Nation now with Ranger over Lord NM versus Chain Gang, the team formerly known as Matt's fan club. But really, it can't be Matt's fan club anymore if you have Matt joining the team. Also, some roster changes there. But you know what they kept here, Mitch? They kept Kermit with the Thanos glove.
That's fine. I permit the Kermit, personally. Totally happy to keep that here. I mean, honestly, it is crazy coming back to NA after a little bit of a hiatus from covering Deadlock, from sort of being involved. To see Hydra Nation in a challenger match is obviously insane. It's kind of crazy what's going on with the Baroness Hotel. If you were able to listen to one of our graveyard shifts from a few weeks back, I think Jonja was talking about the new team that he's looking to work on. This, I don't think he's in, but just the lore behind a mixed team coming together and then smashing Hydra Nation is very satisfying. So NA Deadlock stays winning. It stays extremely volatile, hard to predict. So I'm glad we get to preside over some of it.
Dan, as we've been watching the storylines evolve here, the interesting thing to me is that I think Matt's fan club is upgraded here they get their namesake in, they have to change their name, but the NA teams we're in a new cycle of reorganization, and you wonder if that gives Hydra Nation some pause.
Yeah, and I mean, it should. I think what we're seeing in the NA region is that there are the teams of players, or rather I should say there are the players. They just need to make the right combination of them, and perhaps Matt being added to Matt's fan club actually is going to be something that allows for this team to resonate on a deeper frequency, a frequency of success. Because Hydra Nation, look at that, just like back-to-back wins as we expect in this region, but finally, what's going on? They lost 2 weeks in a row. It seems like we are finally getting what we asked for in NA, which is a lot more diversity in these teams.
It's the John and Sire connection, bro. I'm telling you, those two. Just put them together with whatever team, doesn't matter. They're grinders. They'll get the result. Hopefully we see the same here from the Baroness Hotel this week. But Hydra Nation, surely not a trifecta of missed weeks in that finals game. There is just no way, dude. Surely. Here's your roster. Lefa, Brocane, Lomain, AVG, Hydration, and Ranger. Just new additions. So Lord and M sacrificed into the crater of Krakatoa for good fortune, harvests, and many, many maidens by Hydra Nation. The last one, can't promise you got anything, guys, but I heard the call for the other two. This team have a little bit of a spot at the top of NA to regain.
Dan, as you look at this roster here, it's interesting how you have so many familiar faces, and yet, as Mitch kind of alludes to here, every now and then there has to be a sacrifice to keep the machine going. And it's an interesting one here, too, where behind the scenes, there's a lot to be said about Ranger being more of a cerebral lad, which is kind of interesting in esports because, I look back at, some of your experience with CS. Haven't you had times there, too, where people go like, okay, we're going to add a player to a team, and it's more about the leadership than necessarily being the absolute best fragger in the server?
Well, that is actually one of the funniest things, because often the most mechanically gifted players end up getting a lot of the kind of I suppose the clout, right? They get their ego going, and so they think that they know everything, when in reality they kind of don't, because there's obviously so much more when it comes to organizing a team, the macro strategy, how all of the pieces should work together. And then eventually one day you got to come to terms with the fact that is necessary, and that you got to get over the egos, and you got to bring in someone that offers that level of leadership. And so if that's a difference maker here for Hydra Nation, that'd be great, because they have all of the skill and experience, and they have a very diverse hero pool. So in reality, there shouldn't really be anything stopping them from losing. And I'm sure that's how they feel too, which is why they've likely made that change.
Show me the draft. That's what I want to see.
Moving on to the opposition, we got Chain Gang, and it's a little bit different than Matt's fan club, where they've added Poshy Pop, they've added Matt. What that means for Little Troops, who can say, as Poshy Pop used to be the coach of Little Troops and now is just full-time active duty in on this new iteration of Chain Gang. And, you know, Mitch, taking a look at things here at Chain Gang is that you have new faces here, but you also have some veteran presence from Poshy, who's been involved in these tournaments for a very long time now.
Yeah, ever since day dot, basically, Poshy's been in the mix. So, I'm looking forward to see what this Chain Gang team can show us. I'm glad we're getting to see some, repeating appearances from a number of these players here through our night shift. And as much as NA feels like just a big batch of mixed teams coming together, good to see these guys continue to get the reps here and get out ahead. Once the rubber hits the road and we actually have some real stakes to play for, thanks to our friends over at Intel, of course, we now do here at our night shift. So they are definitely fighting for some nice bit of side change.
Dan, as you take a look at this roster, does anything stand out to you and things you're looking at, maybe something along the lines of Matt, who has felt like an X factor in some of these recent games?
Yeah, I love that he's on this team, because his presence on holiday previously, is how I came to know him as a player at Night Shift, was profound, and it was I think the central reason why his teams that Matt was playing for in those particular instances were managing to be competitive, because of the level of disruption, the initiation, the being able to kind of take over, like actually have a situation where you maybe lose some of the early game, but you have an answer to come back in. And it was Matt on the holiday, so just being that dynamic for a team, I think is really powerful, and it's exciting to watch. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And like you said in the EU portion, we've seen people going away from holiday, but I think it's an overreaction.
You know what else is powerful and exciting to watch before we get into our challenging match? That's right, we got to do a little bit of mole versus mole action. And Mitch, since the last time you've been here, they've upgraded their wardrobe. They're going to brawl, but it's going to be classy.
I'm here for this this skin. Big shout out, obviously, to the people that put that together. Yeah, we like some classy Mo and Krill out here, even if they're going to roll up those sleeves and opt for some fisticuffs instead. Nice little parry there. Arctic is in trouble. Looks like... yeah, this is going to be a bit of a one-sided 1v1, boys.
Yeah, I mean, this is the advantage. If you've played a lot of night shifts, you're going to have the reps on the Mo and Krill 1v1. And Arctic there, I feel like, maybe needs some more time in the... I mean, I feel like, where else would you get the practice other than actually just doing it for night shift?
Well, the draft is underway here, Dan. And now you just got done watching EU. We were both casting it. Are you expecting to see the EU meta bleed over, or do you think some things like the GT are going to get through? Do you even think there will be the same love of Gun Ivy? Because NA and EU, sometimes they align, but also oftentimes there's a clear divide between what the regions are valuing.
Well, there we see the GT. It does get banned, and if we want to follow that pattern from EU and the value, I mean, we just had Lightbringer to explain it to us as well. GT, Kelvin. And so we'll see if Kelvin gets left open or not, and where the value is put on that Ivy. But because I don't think that Ivy is really valued very much. And also, another question is Veilwalker valued? Because Veilwalker's a big difference maker on a lot of these pickups. But there you go. Okay, the trend continues for now.
I'm glad that Lightbringer brought up on the EE show just how powerful Veilwalker is right now, because you can, in theory, obviously you can only get it every 12 seconds, right? But the amount of buffs you get is insane. And unlike Fort, it gives you in-combat buffs outside, as opposed to Fort only working outside of combat, right? When you're sort of working the map or trying to sort of go for a re-engage. So it's very powerful, and the invisibility lasts for 7 seconds. So you can really stretch that pop out and then only have 5 more seconds until you can trigger it again. It is pretty disgusting.
Dan, is this the rare occurrence where, like the planets aligning in some celestial event? NA and EU look to be taking some beats from each other. In this case, NA saying we watched the EU drafts, but it's over. Mo and Krill getting highly valued as it has been in NA the last few weeks.
And I think EU still values it too, but I think you're seeing Abrams maybe take a spot over it, potentially sometimes Billy as well, although Billy doesn't seem to be performing quite as well in EU recently, at least of this week. But Abrams has been pretty hot. But sometimes I wonder, ZP, how much is that because Listic is so sick on it? But the Pocket coming out, which has been more highly valued in EU as well.
Yep. GT band as well, so Pocket is free. You can snap that up here.
Yeah, I mean, you've been noticing with Pocket just getting picked early and early in draft just by pure virtue of what you're bringing the team fights. But yeah, getting the GT out, who oftentimes can be one of the harbingers of doom for a Pocket, certainly helps. But Hydra Nation deciding, I want a little bit of that early game pressure here. And, Mitch, the one trend we've seen a lot is just people using Mina and Nox Nostra to just be a bulldozer and knock down your mid-boss, knock down your walkers, and, just use as a macro edge.
Yeah, obviously it's really powerful and, much more effective even against NPCs. It's pretty dangerous. So well worth folding in here and getting that Abrams side of the Abrams-Billy Bash Bros combo seems pretty powerful. This is a very potent draft so far for both sides, but you can see they're both now starting to at least trend into the same direction as what we're seeing in terms of Europe's prioritization, of some of these heroes.
Dan, as you're looking at this, the only curveball here is the early Mo. The rest of it here, it's sticking to a pretty familiar script here so far.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen on the initiators here now, because, the question for me is, I would love to see, Holiday get picked up for Matt, but if they've taken Paradox, that kind of fits the same role. And so at the same time, though, we see teams sometimes get a Paradox and a Lash, and I'm curious if Lash will come into play in NA. I think Lash is generally more popular, and there we go. So Holiday does get banned out, so they deny the kind of mirroring of Paradox in terms of the archetypes.
I don't even have Mo and Krill here available either, so that's interesting. Also, I'm curious if we see Doorman in this rotation, obviously skilling into that number 2 ability, getting that barrier, being able to just fight really effectively with that insane numerical edge that you can get, and obviously being able to use that that ultimate to lock people out of the game for a bit. Pretty potent. It's the Mirage getting taken away.
Yeah, and I kind of look at this here, Dan, and it makes me wonder, okay, was this just an anti-Pashi ban? Because Mirage hasn't been banned for quite a while, generally speaking. Still valued, still picked here and there, but we're off the glory days of you need the first pick or first ban Mirage no matter what. But last week, Pashi looked really good on the Mirage, and Pashi's playing for Chain Gang, so this feels a little bit more like the NA style of we just want to take away what you're good at.
Yeah, and there's an interesting scenario where, I could also see a Bebop come into play potentially for Hydra Nation if they want to find that pick potential. Bebop has come into a higher value assessment, I think, overall over the last few weeks, and it does pair really well with Doorman. We've seen it can, there's ways to synergize super well with that. So yeah, we'll see if there's a response from Pashi, if we'll see a last second Wraith or something, or Infernus come out. That could be something that Pashi could be comfortable on as well. But the split pushing dynamic of a Mirage, it's hard to substitute that.
Now, Mitch, as you're looking at this here, it seems for Hydra Nation, some things change, some things stay the same. Where even meta-wise, it's like you look at Hydra Nation, you go, oh, they've picked Abrams, they've picked Yamato. These are picks. You think about what they've been most notable on over time. You still feel pretty good if you go to Leffa and you go, like, hey, Leffa, pick up the Yamato.
Yeah. Just play Yamato. Hopefully we don't get any jam side gun Yamato nonsense. That was pretty ridiculous. Although jam side will just be all gun carry on anything. So don't read into it too much. But obviously this is a very powerful collection of heroes for Hydra Nation. In terms though, we mentioned it in the first rotation, in terms of having hard initiation potential, you're a bit more limited on that. But Hydra Nation can obviously just take fights, try and punish bad positioning, and also force engagements by trying to contest objectives and the like. So not an issue. They can really bully into that enemy side jungle as well, clean up a bunch of this stuff, and the Shiv and Geist will round things out for Chain Gang.
Dan, you finally gotten what you've been kind of, hoping for all night long. I was like, why have people not been going for the Geist? The Geist is still pretty good. Finally, it's happened. Chain Gang, they decide to go for the Geist, and I do wonder if this is, again, maybe a Pashi Pop pick.
Yeah, and I think Geist is also kind of nice because I think it also protects your Shiv a bit, because I think Geist could have fit well for Hydra Nation also still with what they had. And I think the health swap that Geist has can really just destroy a Shiv's momentum in the fight. And so they won't have to worry about that as much. So yeah, I actually really like what Chain Gang have here overall. And seeing Calico come in, Calico is one that we, again, she got some buffs. She's a bit better, but we haven't seen the value in Europe at all for Calico.
But I wonder if it's supposed to be like Obakim's support Haze in a similar way. You're carrying the cold front into the fights. You are obviously able to get in there a lot of the time and get out pretty easily. Have a lot of those AoE actives that you can sort of apply, while also being in lane, being pretty annoying and lame. And that's kind of the reason why they nerfed the Calico in the first place, because you can just dive in and get too much value and a lot of map control. Being able to obviously make use of Ava to cover a lot of ground very quickly.
You know, Dan, as we take a look at this here, this is where, you know, one of the big value judgments is like, you know, which team has it in the beginning, which team has it in the end. You're taking a look at this right now, and, you know, which team do you feel like here is okay with this going the late game versus the team that is under more pressure to take this one away early?
It's kind of interesting because I feel like the late game scaling is definitely with Hydra Nation for sure, but I also like their early game a bit more as well, potentially. I don't think Shengang have a bad early game, but I kind of feel like Hydra Nation have come away just a little bit better on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how the Calico is supposed to play here, but we've got a team that fights unbelievably well. Also, like, these lanes look kind of gross. I think there's like at least one very strong lane here for Changan that they can try and abuse, but you've got a lot of push potential here across the Hydra Nation look. And I don't know how the Calico is supposed to sort of fit into this, but Doorman fights really effectively in lane. We know what Yamato can do, and she gets ahead. You still have that Abrams, which is just such a go-to here. Changang feel like they're a bit more exploratory here, and this is what I wonder if Hydra Nation is they obviously have added a player recently, and the whisper is that like maybe to help a little bit more in the draft, but like coaches can do that too. So I want to see exactly what the true value is out of this 6th player, this new addition to Hydra Nation, and why they've sort of made changes in order to facilitate for it.
We've seen that a lot here. So far, the Deadlock player to coach pipeline is very short-lived, where Pajipop decided to become a coach, and then it was maybe 3 weeks later, and Pajipop says, actually, I'm a player. But you know, Mitch, in your brief absence, you know what hasn't changed since you've been gone? NA players and going to the bathroom. We're just waiting for a few players to return, and that's why we're just sitting here gamming about the draft instead of letting both of you get on and into it. But, just NA esports, Mitch, some things never change.
Yeah, like I'm glad that honestly our evolutionary imperative to piss has not changed over the last couple of weeks. It's more just that the timing of it, Hydra Nation really just like syncing up their piss schedules in order to make sure that, they'd land it right after the draft, so they get a chance to really mull over these ideas, right, as they drain the main vein.
Damn, I need follow-up thoughts on this deep line of thought. What do you got?
I don't know how to follow that. Like, in a brand safe way. We're trying to be more brand safe on this show. We've had some incidents recently. Pocket, Jason. These people are risky. In fact, Mitch, I feel like you're a bit of a risky man yourself, and I don't know. I feel like I got to be careful here.
That's so interesting. I think I've got the potential to drag you down a path of degeneracy, but I thought that. Honestly, like nature calling was probably within the realm of like, we all do it type vibes. You know what I mean? Maybe it's like that slightly harsh use of the word piss instead of pee. But I'll try and trim those rough edges down. Tinkle, yeah, little trot off for a little periwinkle. You know what I mean? We can cutify the idea of urinating just as Lady Geist got cutified by her asset changes. So that's fine. More yassified, honestly. Less cutified. I'm still here for it though.
Yassified. I don't know that word.
Dan, I won't put you.
Just go yassified, bro.
Dan, I won't put you on the spot to continue this line of thought, but in the wide world of Deadlock, you get the opportunity for an open topic here, whatever it may be. What's on your mind as we sit here and fill the time while waiting for the teams to be ready?
I don't know. Just glad that Mitch is back, man. I missed him. I wish I could give him a hug.
It's been too long, hasn't it? We got to get these Deadlock lands going. We need to spin them up yesterday, Mr. Newell. But yeah, good to be back, dude. Seriously, it's been a pretty wild couple of weeks. I'm still resetting from EU time. Do you know what I mean? Still trying to get back on the horse, but it's great to see that the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think is the turn of phrase that ZP was searching for there in terms of
what EU time are you were you on? Where have you been?
Paris. I was on Central European time. I was in Paris, yeah, for Valorant Champions. So
how did they treat you there? Did they treat you well, Mitch?
I don't love France. I'm just going to put it out there.
Oh, God.
It's a little challenging. I also think that the hotel we were staying at, unfortunately, was just basically a step above a hostel. So that didn't, really add to the experience, I'd say. But, I would go back as long as I wasn't staying in the Novotel and every Coqueron. That would be great.
The south of France is really nice. I found like everyone's very friendly there. But in the, Paris itself, they're probably a bit sick of us, I think.
Did I?
Mitch, I just feel like
I didn't find it was a problem. I did not. Well, My partner can speak French, so that probably helped. She just kind of paved the way. I think if I could, without her, I would have been in trouble. I think, yeah.
Mitch, I just think that's an esports tradition, though, because I remember the one Overwatch event we did in Paris. I think you were casting that event, maybe not, it was a World Cup, and we got put into a closet.
No,
that was the most. That was the most expensive hotel Blizzard put us in. It was like, we did not have a lot of room. And so my take from there is that hotels in France are incredibly expensive.
I didn't go.
That's
right.
right.
You know why I didn't go to that event? Because I managed to get business class flights worked into my contract that year. So they simply didn't fly me anywhere.
The one over. But guess what? We don't have to go into history anymore. The match is good to go. Hydra Nation looking to reclaim the throne, but they got to get through Chain Gang first. On the mic, it's going to be Uber and DDK.
Oh, yes, Dan. Let's do it. So, yassification of Lady Geist Desai. We do have a game afoot. This is a best of one between Hydra Nation and Chain Gang. Previously, Maht's fan club for the chance to take on the Baroness Hotel for that $1,000. Thanks to our friends over at Intel. It's great to be back. We've got great logos for both these teams, so we can start talking about these lane assignments. We've got Doorman here up in this mid lane. You can see Chain Gang obviously have the Latch and Paradox to fight them.
Yeah, these lanes are going to be really fun. Really fun. I was hoping that we would get the Doorman Yamato connection, because just like it's just the power slashes are just devastating enough. But if you can't even be safe from any angles, I feel like it should be really cool to see like very good players, you know, that understand how to synergize at this level, like showing us that particular dynamic. I'm super excited for that mid lane.
Yeah, okay. We're obviously looking at the right side here. So this is where the Calico and the Ivy are set up. It makes sense. The Calico's going to be on a side lane, so she can rotate in, make use of that extra mobility that Ava offers. Back here, of course, towards mid is Yamato alongside that Doorman. So you are going to notice, of course, that consistent poke coming out of the Shiv and that Paradox. So keep an eye on that. But already we've got some push coming in as some sand is thrown. Division wants to put some pressure down on this Guardian. Low main going to pull up a little bit short there on the slashes. Finally, we see Hydra Nation try and stave them off. This wave pressure, though, definitely favoring Chain Gang.
Yeah, I actually like this Chain Gang combo a lot. I think, you know, typically Mo might struggle a little bit, I think, with Ivy, but I think we're having the Geist back up. You know, Geist has really strong sustain as well and has pretty good damage output from range, and also can zone off with the Geist bombs too. So I actually feel like I'm kind of feeling the Geist Mo more, and I actually think that they should be able to come out on top in this lane. There is always the question, though, of just the skill and familiarity difference that might exist for Hydra Nation, because these have been the top dogs of NA for a very long time. So there might be a level where, even in a disadvantageous matchup, they're still able to win out.
We love that sustain, right? I think that's huge. Essence Drain and Scorn are going to allow you to hang around and be that bit more aggressive here through these lanes. And we'll touch on this left side lane matchup in a second, which I also find quite interesting. It is the Mina already rotating rightward, so I think that might just be a preliminary foray here across the map. You'll notice that down on the mini-map, leaving the Abrams, of course, Hydration there to eat up some of this farm. And, of course, we are still below the 3-minute mark, so much more to transpire here as we have AVG having a back out of that brief engagement among the rooftops.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because sometimes the ways can work out whereby, because they take it's roughly 45 seconds to replenish. If you can clear wave really quickly, you can find like a window of timing where you can leave the lane, do some box runs really quickly, and then kind of get back to lane. So it's kind of cool to actually see the teams trying to punish each other for doing that. Not always super common.
Corbell here is going to be quite annoying in terms of that poke back. So at least there's something for Hydra Nation in this wave to try and get themselves forward a little bit. But the Carbine did catch on to Ranger. Obviously no threat of a paradoxical swap here from Erebus yet, but Ranger still doesn't want to push their luck, of course. This newest addition to Hydra Nation coming in for Lord and M. So baggage card off towards the left side, just in case Erebus was trying to be a nuisance from the periphery.
And I think, you know, the left side lane for, essentially for Matt and for Con, who are, you know, playing the Pocket and Viscous there for Chain Gang, that is definitely a pretty tough lane up against Amina and an Abrams. It does seem like they are taking the worst of it at the moment, but I think they have a good amount of tools to come out more evenly here. But we get somewhat of a dive there. There is a Sanguine Retreat to get a reposition in. More damage from over the top here. Really well played there on that Mina from Rokane, as you'd expect. And you've got also still very aggressive positioning there, trying to get out. And good damage on the exit coming in from Maht as well. And Actually, HP's for everybody on Chain Gang side kind of low, but they just have that one lane, I think, which is the beacon of light, Mitch, which is that right side lane. The rest look like Hydra Nation are winning mid and left.
Yeah, look at that. Mid, the Rangers actually able to pick off Erebus. So that was the one lane that we thought might look a little more stable, steady. Instead, there's a big engagement there, as of course the Yamato is going to add a lot of that damage into the mix. And despite that earlier retreat of the Sanguine variety, of course, Rokane is still trying to push up on this Guardian. Some Pokelys coming back down from Connor here, but we mentioned this lane will be a bit of an issue for Chain Gang, and so far they've really pushed ahead of that line of scrimmage. Puddle punch there. Maybe just to disrupt Hydra Nation stepping up. And already we have Ranger overseeing the scenario here. A Majestic Leap already finding its way into an inventory. Definitely being highly valued. That might have been Maht picking that up.
Ooh. That bell is meaty. It's a meaty bell. 80 damage.
Yeah, bro, it hits different. Obviously, you could detonate that one in advance. Could bomb thrown down. Left for attempting to zone a little bit. Obviously, this is the individual we're going to be looking for later on in the game, as Capacitor now has made its way into the builds for these gun Ivies, and they definitely have that ability to take the game over. It also builds out of Tesla bullets, which is pretty reasonable for them to take. See Hydration there with a shoulder charge. Matt able to at least get back behind his safe zone.
Yeah, really good laning so far on the left here. And Rokane, he's able to take down a Viscous. Connor's going to go down. That's very unfortunate. Yeah, so it does kind of look like, yeah, 2 lanes really effective here so far for Hydra Nation early on. And good work being done on the right side Guardian from Chain Gang. Just looking at the HP, about 50% there on Hydra Nation's right side Guardian. So good work there from Chain Gang. You've got to have something going for you. You can't lose every lane. I mean, you can, but hopefully you can't. And so far, so good in that respect. And here's a quick move.
Nox Nostra to follow up the affliction here now on this left side of the map. Connor quickly returns to the fray with a flourish going very, very low, and Matt being picked off here means that this left side is heavily compromised for Chain Gang. At least the Viscous is going to be able to get themselves out, but that is going to be a Guardian eaten up by Hydra Nation.
Yeah, now, Mitch, there's definitely some problems because Hydra Nation, they'll be able to have Rokane start to roam a little bit there. But I thought we've got more of an engagement here on this right side. That's gone so well for Chain Gang, but Lomain will be able to take the fight. They were waiting for the perfect opportunity. They found it. They're able to capitalize and get some wave clear here and then start maybe pressuring back. But their HP is not the best here, so it looks like they're somewhat passive.
Okay, well, it looks like a zipline boost back to lane there for Matt, I think it was, and Hydration going down as a result. Rokane that wins the fight out against Connor, who's still trying to fight, and by the looks of things, I don't think there'll be an engagement here by the pocket. Matt opting out of that. I've got to see. We're going to check with Arctic in a second. I'm just trying to make sure that wasn't a Majestic Leap picked up by the Shiv. That would be a pretty novel take on itemization. But already that cold front here in the hands of Lomain. So a similar idea to what we see from the Haze. Get in there, pop those actives and make sure you're as disruptive as possible. But it's not a lane that, exudes power, as the Ivy is still very much in an early game phase of itemization and overall strength. Okay, no, I was not saying.
It would be Matt,
thank God.
most likely. Usually with the pocket, you want to get that Majestic Leap. I mean, you see a lot of top players getting it really, really fast, kind of rushing it, sometimes like second item even, potentially. So, Matt, yeah, you can see it. So Cold Front, Healing Right, and Majestic Leap. So really important because at this stage of the game, you as a pocket, you want to use that Majestic Leap. You can use it to kind of barrage, to cover distances very effectively to get the initiations. But those bells, man.
Dude,
too meaty.
That was a 400 damage call bell. That is so disgusting. Rokane picked up here, though, as it turns out. Maht was in the right place at the right time. And that, of course, was a rotation into the left side of the map. Erebus, that wasn't required in the end. There wasn't a paradoxical swap that needed to be used. Power slash shield forces division back away. Ranger looks like they popped ultimate here. And yeah, we've got someone currently enjoying a brief sabbatical in the Baroness Hotel. They'll pop out to an hellscape as AVG will complete that elimination, and they'll be hunting for more here in this mid side of the map. Elsewhere, Connor's going down. We're about to see multiple kills break out of this map. It's Nox Nostra from above there, and AVG is picked off division. That was back in the mid side of the map. Of course, we're on the left here as Matt returns with a flourish. Hydration is picked off, and they're still holding on to the affliction. Still a very, very dangerous prospect to challenge, and that's why we've seen Rokane duck back to his side of the map and get some neutral camps. It's time for that across the board, apparently.
And Maht is definitely like the most important player right now for Chain Gang. I mean, especially at this portion of the game where overall the whole map has not been going their way, Chain Gang. So they need Maht to be able to be performing well, you know, making sure that the farm is going well, but also is active in trying to attack into the opponent's jungle and trying to isolate fights, trying to initiate or setups, you know, to fight the lanes with his team. And so we'll see what else Maht's able to do, but right now stuck on that left lane alone.
Yeah, and Flank Strike are going to connect. There's pretty much no escape here for Arctic, bloodletting or otherwise. They're going to fall. Low main, that's on the right side, I think, of the map. They will be taken down. But no one is looking to fight a 9.4k soul AVG under that shadow transformation duration. Both he and Rokane really been able to pick up souls. Allocation in that regard been very, very good here for Hydra Nation. Funneling, of course, and left for Rokane and AVG's direction. Ranger happy to throw down here. Many of those abilities, though, on cooldown. Just trying to defend to buy time here for low main to rotate into this lane as well. From the shadows, return of shadows. God help me. Active now for the Calico.
Yeah, and bridge buffs were collected by either team, and you know, now you can see Maht. This is what we're talking about, trying to get that pressure in, trying to ensure that he can keep the other team on their toes, but unable to find the kill opportunities that they need. And it's a pretty big difference in souls for this portion of the game. It has been closed a little bit, the gap, but the urn's been collected here, Mitch, by Hydra Nation, and they're looking to just go for the straight run across. They do have some map control there. The wave is pushed. So we'll see if there's going to be any resistance from Chain Gang.
It looks like at the very least Poshy Pop is going to be here, but given they're alone, I expect we won't see them contest this whatsoever. Remember, Doorman can do some pretty dirty things with urn turn-ins, especially defending them, right? Throwing that door up behind the altar, just to make it really dangerous to try and turn it in, because you're functionally right in front of the enemy team as you try and do it. Guardian, though, picked up finally. That is mid pressure now starting to bear fruit, but on the right hand side of the map there was an urn turn in into Guardian take as Pochipot was forced away from it entirely. His Arctic though looking for that ultimate pickup. Nice damage done, and it's really only Rokane here with a Nox Nostra trying to maybe push his way back a little bit. Connor goes pretty low, but a Sanguine retreat there as Rokane will have to head back to brooding on the rooftops.
Yeah, and it works out, you know, trading that like giving it up to be able to take down an extra Guardian is super high value because of just the map control that unlocks for your team. But still, you know, 10k difference or so, and you know, the 10k difference until it's realized, you know, isn't always a problem. So it can be a bit misleading when you see it because, you know, is that 10k difference, is that turned into items just yet? And as we see, you know, now the decisive advantage on the side of Hydra Nation, you would expect to see Hydra Nation at this point in the game start to jungle invade, start to say, okay, we've got the advantage, let's keep the pressure on and really prevent our opponents from farming.
13k for Rokane. God, that call bell, I'm just expecting it to chunk people at this point. Yeah, given how like some of this itemization is also looking for the doorman. Call to Sacrifice, of course, picked up. So you mentioned that we want to see Hydra Nation start to push into the enemy jungle. Call to Sacrifice, a huge part of that. Getting in there, taking out those large camps quickly. That's obviously how you continue to extend your lead. It's not enough just to passively farm your side of the map and fall back behind that line of scrimmage. You need to continue to take risks, take map control, and take away those neutral camps as well, of course, as those sinners.
Yeah, so far it does feel like Hydra Nation have been somewhat conservative in terms of the pressure game. And typically with a Mina that's like as far ahead as Rokane is, look, one of the functions of that is seeing Mina go very aggressive.
Hydration here, caught in a bit of a snafu. It looks like Connor's going to have to get out. Despite being in goo ball form, they were completely outnumbered. We'll see them move away, and you can see how many of these Call to Sacrifice are being picked up. It is quite a wild. Spirit cooldown there as well for the Mina. That's going to be pretty crucial. And yeah, now we know why those bells are chunking. That is improved Spirit already having been picked up here for Ranger. Just trying to make sure they can push wave really effectively and generally win that poke game when it comes to dealing with those other heroes. And look, there's a rotation in from Ranger, or at least in that Chain Gang jungle there towards the left side of the map. A chance to converge with Rokane and convert that soul lead even further. On the right, you're going to see Division maybe even chasing that Calico, or mindful at least that low main could be a tasty morsel to snap up, but they themselves have got 12k souls.
Yeah, early Warpstone and Duration Extender on the Moan Krill from Division, so really just essentially just telling us everything. The entire job there for Division is to like close the difference, close the distance really quickly, and just get a combo, lock someone down for an opening pick.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Very much have that initiation advantage between the Paradox and the Moan Krill. Something Hydra Nation themselves can't really boast, but don't seem to mind, again, as they are looking to take the fight to Chain Gang and trying to move in numbers when they're on the enemy side of the map, always trying to get favorable advantages. We are here, of course, on board with AVG. Obviously, Life Strike's been added to the inventory. Debuff, remover, also an option, so pretty dangerous. Of course, you can parry those puddle punches as they are essentially ranged melee attacks.
Better me in charge of this power than my father.
So again, Hydra Nation, they've had this advantage for a while, still somewhat passive with it. I think giving opportunity for Chain Gang, maybe just trying to out-macro them and feeling like, okay, our opponents will make mistakes, we'll just punish them, and that's how we'll win this game.
Walker. It's so good, bro. There's that 7 seconds of invisibility is very powerful. Erebus tries to start an engagement there, and unfortunately, low main is going to come for them. They might have overextended into it a little bit. Aposhi wasn't able to do much to help. Hydration here, getting pulled out of what could have been a compromising situation. And still, though, AVG getting pretty close here. Rokane also in position. They might like to try and fight this now as Nox Nostra rains blood. Or bloody bats down on this Chain Gang side. They'll have to stay safe back to their side of the map, and we'll have the zipline boost coming back in here as Hydration might be ready to throw down once more.
There we go. There's the push coming on through, and okay, there's the shadow transformation, and it's immediately going to get taken down. That's a great look, though, for Chain Gang. This is a really, really good engagement to win, and they're protecting the urn whilst they're at it.
I mean, sometimes, like, I wonder if you actually want to hit the flying strike. Sometimes you regret it because it's not like you can really cancel it there. Looks like that was thrown out by AVG, and then he realized he had to shadow transformation in order to have a chance. Maybe he was just hoping to get out of the fight, but he got burst down pretty darn quickly. Here now, Matt's trying to go in for something to the connection, of course, and in we go to the Baroness Hotel, and Matt has no idea what they're going to pop out into. They won't have that barrage available. Ranger respecting it here, but a call bell thrown in the direction of the emerging pocket makes them an easy pickup now for Rokane. He wants a little bit more here, even with the poke getting thrown down by the Viscous, a puddle punch that would have affected him if he didn't sanguine retreat straight to those rooftops. But by and large, this is still looking good for Hydra Nation, even after losing that Yamato. It's a couple players getting picked off, a little bit sloppy. They still got that map control. It's a matter of converting and waiting for Hydration to rejoin them.
I mean, in the meantime, Chain Gang earlier, they got the comeback urn as well. So, this Walker aggression is very important for Hydra Nation because the game, it's kind of slipping away. Their advantage has diminished. Here comes the defensive effort coming on through there from Arctic on the Shiv. That Walker will be committed onto, but are they going to be able to retreat and survive? That's the question. The trolley will be sending back Arctic, and it seems like they'll be able to fall back in one piece for now.
Now, Hydra Nation having some disengaged tools. Leffa, though, not quite able to escape. So that is AVG and Leffa out of the game. AVG has had pretty short lives over the last couple of minutes now, as in both occasions the Yamato's return to the fight only to get blown up. And this has closed the gap pretty significantly. I think a lot of their soul lead for Hydra Nation was tied up in having the extra 2 Guardians. So now that those have gone down, it's just getting a little bit more interesting, a little bit closer. Curious to see how these next few moments play out as Leffa's going to return to the field. It looks like up mid is where Hydra Nation are trying to shove here. You notice that mid walker down almost half. Shoulder charge connecting though for Hydration. Warpstone has to be used in order for Division to get out. He wants to engage, not be engaged on. So he will be able to extract himself from what could have been a dangerous situation.
And it's really this is a really interesting game in the sense that I think I'm so used to seeing the EU teams be really aggressive with their advantages, and in this particular case, we see Hydra Nation just deciding we're going to focus on farm. We're going to just focus on trying to farm out. We're not going to do it too aggressively, and they still have a lead, but it is not as sizable. They are up 1 Walker at the moment, and so Chain Gang are entering the mid game, and you start to wonder, okay, who scales better into the game? And I feel like, the roster for Hydra Nation does scale better overall. So yeah, if they do play the late game and they just keep getting, ever so slightly ahead over time, they're still going to be in a good spot to win the game. But for me, what's interesting is Chain Gang are no means out of it. Just one team fight where they do a really good job on their initiation, catch Hydra Nation off guard, whatever it might be, and that can completely turn the game.
Big shout out to chat, by the way, because it's been brought to my attention. You can actually cancel Flying Strike midway through, which that removes even.
Yeah, but if you do it, Mitch, aren't you kind of beta if you do it?
Yeah, it's a little beta. Yeah, but honestly, you can be Chad, you can be alpha and dead or beta and alive. So it's really up to you. At least you have time to glow up if you're still alive. It's like, beta today so you can alpha tomorrow kind type thing.
There you go.
Okay, as a non-Yamato player, it's nice to have chat there to quickly chime in. I don't play Yamato because I just feel like my ego is not really tied to my results in Deadlock, so I don't play the pick-me's. But, great to see the AVG, though, can have the option at least to cancel that engage. Anyway, you actually have a pretty strict line of scrimmage drawn. You'll notice that on the map here, there aren't a lot of neutral camps to sort of contest, but the buffs are coming up in 30 seconds. So that might be now where these teams are heading. It does look like Chain Gang maybe just want to secure one for themselves. Happy enough with that, but Hydra Nation might be looking for a bit of a scrap.
Yeah, Matt's pretty dangerous for sure. Like, of course, not quite the parity of souls as Leffert or Rokane, but just the nature of Pocket has that transcendent cooldown as well, so it'll be harder to lock down. The best thing to lock down the Pocket is the Nos Nostra due to the silencing impact of that, but for now, Matt can sort of try to set up whatever he wants. The play across the bridge buffs here is going to go to Hydra Nation.
I mean, yeah, look at that. They're trying to use this as an objective to fight over. Hydra Nation don't have a great comp for engaging, right? So they want to just posture around these neutral objectives and get Chain Gang to fight for them. Now, if they don't fight for them, then they're going to fall behind. No one's looking at the buff on the right side of the map right now. That might be something that Poshipop could just pick up at his own volition. Paradox skill swap thrown in there. Hydration in a bit of an awkward spot here. I think that is safe to say. But in the meantime, Connor's gone down. Rokane's been able to find his one, and Hydration eventually is going to fall. Now, we saw Hydra Nation sort of give up 2 kills to get a Walker. That was fine earlier on. That was for a flex slot. If they can trade evenly here, it's also fine. But this is not the best side of the map to be fighting over. Really, the Urns on the right. There's an exposed Walker as well you can work on if you're Hydra Nation. So they've got to turn this into something. Maybe they go after like a base guardian or something to make this worthwhile. Or collapse into mid quickly.
Oh, Poshipop is in trouble here coming out of the hotel. And it's a rude awakening. Oh my goodness.
The cart into the wall? That is brutal.
He's trying to get into the Uber, but it's actually not an Uber. It's like a fake Uber. He gets mugged. He gets
fake taxi. Yeah, I've seen that one.
The cash machine.
That's crazy. Mid boss now going to be looked at by Hydra Nation. So simply rotating across on that left side of the map. Now going to go to work on this. There is going to be an opportunity for Chain Gang to intervene, but these ultimates are a little bit limited. They got a paradoxical swap to work with here, but outside of that, not a whole lot else is going to be attempted anyway. So the wall thrown up. Ranger at least going to be able to, fall down, but create an opportunity for Hydra Nation to take all of those rejuve buffs away. Chain Gang just couldn't quite get here in time, and now they'll feed themselves to the beast. Hydra Nation continuing to get stronger after a very one-sided fight. I mean, Dan, you can see how much Chain Gang valued trying to contest that objective, but that's what Hydra Nation want. That's what they were doing around the buffs. They've been wanting the fight to come to them.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that they definitely seem really comfortable in terms of edges is, hey, if we can just play the max team fight game, we feel like really confident that that's going to be something that we perform really well in. Whereas thinking about the pressure game, the invades into the jungle, they didn't seem like they cared to do that as much. And they definitely have the tools to do it, but they just opted to instead, as you mentioned, focus on these team fights where they really feel like they can kind of engineer better positioning and engineer better initiation that is so important to the outcome.
And we talked about this earlier, at least I touched on it, but that capacitor starting to get picked up by a lot of these IVs here, being able to remove all non-ultimate buffs and have a 5-second slow that does decay, but it's an extensive period of time. That something that can be very, very potent. So worth keeping an eye on that here. Division obviously tries to throw a bit of sand in Rokane's direction. That Sanguine retreat, though, it gives him consummate mobility to get out. And a quick gloss over the soul totals here, and you'll notice that Rokane is 34k. So about 9k ahead of the closest person on the Chain Gang side of thing. Hydra Nation have really opened back up that advantage. And we're 23 minutes into the game. There's still 2 rejuve buffs on Hydra Nation to work with for the next 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And got that map control. We're going to start to see those souls potentially snowball out of control.
Yeah, it's feeling that way for sure. I mean, it was such a close game for so long. And even still, the team fights looked pretty one-sided. And so now I'm scared to see what another team fight might look like with such a huge deficit. Now, definitely feels like Hydra Nation is in such a good spot there. For Hydra Nation to be even scared, I think, in these team fights. And it's hard to imagine that's going to come on through. And you've always got stuff like Shadow Form that's going to allow you to endure that. So you always have a very scary presence in the fight. even if the rest of your teammates are getting pushed back a bit. So,
I mean,
it's hard to find the win conditions.
Yeah, that is fair. Obviously, Shadow Transformation, but also Divinus Kevlar now picked up. So that is going to be pretty important just to make sure those, debuffs are going to be shrugged off pretty comfortably here. And obviously the barrier is very impactful. So curious to see how that sort of works its way into the build. But again, Hydra Nation, they got Regi buffs, right? So let's see them make some use of them, and so they will. They're going to actually start to take some of these objectives and push in. Might get a knock of these shrines and even some good patron damage here. Regi's up for 1 whole minute. What can Hydra Nation do in that window? They're going to be forced to fight for it, of course. But notice the silence wave being picked up here. That gets a little bit awkward there for Arctic, who was maybe hoping to fight or find a way in. As the unburrow, as that shrine on the right side is being looked at very closely. And out we're going to get now. So Leffa just wants a commanding view of the situation here. Drops the bomb on them, though. And Erebus will fall.
Yeah, those mechanics, those Leffa mechanics that everyone has known him for so long. Definitely pretty scary prospect on a fully tooled out Ivy. And they are just decimating the base at this point. And it's hard because now they're kind of staggered in with these deaths. It's hard for them to put, a full fighting force together all at once here against their opponents. But look at that little escape door, little escape hatch.
Yeah, pretty handy. Also, buffs are up and Urn has spawned. So this is a great time, obviously, to make your way through, especially with the waves pushed as favorably for Hydra Nation, with the exception, of course, of that right side, which does mean we might get a bit of an engagement here around this Urn because Rejuve has expired. So Chain Gang now have that window where there's no buff just affecting globally the entirety of Hydra Nation, and also there's no hydration alive to try and get an Urn take. You can bet your bottom dollar Hydra Nation are going to group up for this left side to defend the turn-in location.
Yeah, they are. I also like that the Hydra Nation are trying to play things by the book and play it safe. I feel like they could have, actually tried to force the issue in the base there, but this should be the last fight. The comeback Urn. Both teams are going to go for this one.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. It's going to be tough here for Chain Gang. They are a long way behind. Lomain trying to get in there pretty quickly now. Combo being used. Return of Shadow here in the middle of the fight for Lomain. And Matt's down first. Not ideal for your pocket to be picked off so comfortably. And PCL Chain Gang are falling apart. Hydration was the pickup here, but you'll notice they are the least fed part of Hydra Nation. And that's the GG's already getting called out here. We know the game is done with Patron already knocked down into the pit. Chain Gang had no choice but to go for an Urn, try and find a way to get back in the game. But Hydra Nation actually closing out a game pretty smoothly off that mid-boss take.
Yeah, just so comfortable. Just I mean, the smoothest game ever. After that, I mean, we had that lead that they had early on, and then things looked a little bit sketchy, but they closed it with just some solid standard play, and Hydra Nation are going to find themselves in the money match for a rematch against Baroness Hotel.
Yeah, look, we're aware, obviously, that Affliction bug is a thing. We do need to look past that, though, and see that Hydra Nation have a chance to try and reclaim some of that glory and also those bragging rights that they had for themselves for so long. Solid game, I think, with, 2 lanes that worked very heavily in their favor, and obviously the weaker lane with the real scaling potential in the Ivy being there and good patience. I think it was Leffa, whoever it was on the Ivy, just biding their time, getting that heavy buy later on. Capacitor works its way into the build, and they look very, very strong. So 26-minute game. Hydra Nation have been in the past accused of not being able to convert on those advantages, but this time they look very confident, and Ranger looks like they're right at home.
I was going to ask, how did we rate Ranger in their performance now with Hydra Nation? We know every time they lose, they pick up a new player. Well, they had back-to-back losses before they made the move, Dan, but they did bring Ranger in for the day.
Yeah, I mean, they looked really comfortable. And to be honest, actually, some of the what felt like passive play might have been because they are trying to be integrate the shot calling player who's going to be trying to just control the team. They're getting used to a new structure. They don't know how to limit test it just yet, and they want everyone to sort of do the basics well first. So that's one interpretation I could have, because again, like I've mentioned a few times, I felt like they could have had a little bit more fun pocket with this Mina. Rokane was getting a really good start, just dominating this early lane, as we see in the highlights here.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the best moments. And I gotta say, Uber, your voice plus Deadlock highlights, it's just a marriage that everyone comes in hopes that you guys eventually get divorced and then get remarried in your 50s. I'm loving what we're seeing and hearing from you, my guy. How did you feel coming back for an NA cast?
Yeah, good. All I need to do now, Puckett, is to know what the frick I'm talking about, and we're going to be set.
We're getting
basically
there.
I'll be the perfect caster, at that point. But great to have Dan, of course, alongside me. I think, was able to give a lot of context to what was going on behind these moments. Challenging game to cast, bro, but it's good to be back, and it's back with the freest region, of course, in the world. A little bit of NA action I was a big fan of. On the Ranger topic, I just, the itemization there with the really early improved spirit pickup. Corbell scales pretty heavily with that spirit power, also on the initial impact and the explosion damage. So it's just like you scale in two instances, and once you have a couple levels in it, it also adds a bunch more damage. It's like almost doubles on both aspects of impact and explosion. So it's very, very good in lane just to poke people down, be quite oppressive and be a nuisance. We also saw some of those baggage carts make nice connections. Poshy Pop was on the wrong side of at least one of those here. So great job from Ranger. It's a complex hero to play. They absolutely did their job.
DDK, for those on a mobile cell phone, what are some of the big builds that you saw and anything that you learned from our NA teams?
I think, to be honest, I feel like a lot of these builds are pretty standard stuff at this point. And if you guys are curious about some of these builds, all you have to do is just go into the Deadlock tracker or to follow us in our Discord, where we drop some of the builds there as well. And you can just look up the pros that are playing, and you can see them practicing these builds in the public matches as well. So you get extra context for how you might actually execute the builds in a setting that isn't the pro setting as well, because a lot of it can translate, because these are all pretty effective. I think obviously with Ranger, it's kind of interesting because we've seen a lot of gun doorman be quite popular in EU, whereas here we saw those call bells, like Mitch was saying, hit like a tank, and that looked like a lot of fun. So if you're a doorman player, definitely check out Ranger's build there. With the heavy spirit focus and overall kind of more of a support focus, I would say.
Yeah, we've only had 2 months with the new characters. It seems like they are still evolving the gameplay, at least for now in North America. Hydra Nation walks away with the dub in big part to 2 players above 40k souls. One of them goes by the name of Rokane, and he established dominance early. Let's take a look. 11 kills, 1 death with 10 assists. Not a bad game, Uber.
Yeah, look, I think Tank Buster is still a pretty insane item that's picked up 1345. It ignores spirit resistance. It is really, really good. Any sort of bursty abilities that you have, I think Rake is a good example of this. Does that additional damage plus a portion of your max health. So it's really good against like these sort of viscous and these more Krill setups that want to sort of build that durability. I guess Lash also is kind of hard to deal with. Very, very powerful. Also, Spirit Burn is just kind of insane. It limits that healing. Nox Nostra, like having a silencing aspect to it. It's something that's really powerful against heroes that just want to throw that ultimate out, like the Affliction or like the Frozen Shelter, for example. Really, really effective. I think Mina's great. You do need, I think, to get out of the early game, in a positive form. So, I think being able to pair with an Abrams and just have a pretty oppressive lane assignment really helped get Rokane off the ground.
Why farm when you can just deal out player damage all game? Rokane takes your MVP for Hydra Nation. Chain Gang sent to the sideline. They are out of this week's competition, but we still have one more match to go. DDK, how are we liking the newly tooled Hydra Nation's chances of reclaiming the throne? They take on the Baroness Hotel in a best of 3 next.
Yeah, this will be a really fun series. I think the Baroness Hotel have a really good read of the game at the moment based on how they played things last week. And Hydra Nation are actually coming in as the team that lost and can reflect on that. And that should give them sort of that underdog advantage, which is kind of weird to say about Hydra Nation. And given that Rangers is coming into play as well now, it makes this matchup, I think, super exciting. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm super stoked, especially because I'm an Ido fan. Like many.
Chat, chug your drink, turn into a bully. When we come back, we convince Ido to become a pro player. Stop streaming, just play full time for this team. The Baroness Hotel takes the stage after this.